My first IFAMA was in St. Paul, 2015. And the question was, I was actually Christian Mueller, I don't know if he's here. He invited me to make a presentation regarding standard and food security. So for me, it's interesting now in 2026, we're discussing about collaboration and impact. And the reality is that why 11 years Ronald Guendel has been involved in IFAMA. And the reality is what I have seen in IFAMA during all these years is not only a conference, but a community. A great community that is really supporting each other and finding a common ground. So what is interesting about IFAMA that is that we have different perspectives. Actually yesterday we had a very interesting board meeting. We have completely, maybe not completely, but many different perspectives. But there is a shared purpose. And this is what is really, really important. Interesting to see here industry, academy, students, governments, NGOs, and value chain actors. They were not only present, but they are actually listening each other. And that different voices, and this is what I saw in this initial conference, became a one conversation. So what is interesting here is we listen across different perspectives and we build solutions that no one, not independent organization, can build alone. So again, for me, IFAMA was not a normal conference, was a community that wanted to be part of it. Now the question is why IFAMA matters and why we are here all in this conference and hopefully will continue being engaged in the next years. Most organizations build networks. IFAMA builds bridges. Bridges between sectors, bridges between regions, bridges between generations. And finally, bridges between ideas and topics. And this is essential from my perspective, coming from the business background with the private sector, to find this common ground, these bridges. And this was the idea of Ray Goldberg. And I think most of the presidents actually that have been part of IFAMA and all the different members to create bridges of collaboration, ideas, talent, and action. The future of IFAMA is not defined by the number of connections, but actually how we, as a community, create impact. We discussed the whole week about the different challenges, and I don't want to repeat the challenges that we have. AI, we just had an excellent discussion about AI, climate, food security. Before me, there was an interesting discussion about smallholders, trade, trust. But the reality is, no single organization can solve this alone. And this is not new for any of us. It's clear that we need to work together. And again, I'm going to repeat this 10 times. We need to find common ground. The food system, and we talk a lot about collaboration, doesn't need, the term collaboration as a slogan. We really need to have impactful collaborations, real collaborations. In a collaboration that works, that's really helping the farmer, that's really helping through the whole value chain. Let's close our eyes for a few seconds and think about IFAMA in 2030. Moving forward, and this is I would say, if you ask me what is my dream, this is my dream of IFAMA in 2030, to continue connect people and institutions that we have done. Develop the next generation. Fortunately, many of them, they are now in the final of the case study, but super important to develop this new generation of professionals. Inspire thought leadership. And finally, all of this to have impactful collaboration. Now we have a great opportunity. We're here in Cork, great week, great conference. We're thinking about Peru in 2027. So now the slogans rooted in resilience, let's have a 2027 having a stronger, successful conference in which everybody will be highly motivated. We're going to talk about collaboration. We're going to talk about real cases of collaboration and how IFAMA can actually be a facilitator. And this is why I invited these great professionals to discuss about this topic very openly, and they have a lot of experience in this area of collaboration and actually making collaboration impactful. Please, Ben, and Eugenia.
Do we need to sit at that one?
So again, thank you and welcome. I think it was great that you accepted to be here in this panel and to have a really honest conversation about collaboration and partnerships. But let's start, maybe, Elmé, with you and talk about yourself, about the organization that you are representing, Agraya, and also what collaboration means for you. For your organization.
Yes, thank you, Ronald, and thank you for the huge opportunity to be here and to talk about this topic. And it's actually my first time at an IFAMA conference, so I really enjoyed it. The company, Agraya, that I'm leading, we've been working and collaborating with IFAMA for a long time, with Christian Muller. And it's something that we think is very important, the whole topic of collaboration. Agraya is the company behind the Global Gap Standard. So I don't know if you're familiar with that. I see some nods. We do certification. Well, we built trust for the last 2 decades, basically. We thought we built trust. We had the discussion about trust this morning. But building trust through certification, through verification of compliance on topics such as good agricultural practices or resilience practices, worker health and safety, as well as sustainability. And as the industry has changed and evolved, we see that trust now needs something additional. So it's beyond certification. And what is that? And we talk about AI, we talk about data sharing. What's the trusted information that we can give from certification? I think that is where this information comes from, and how we can share information on what farmers are doing on farm. They already do so much, and we just had from the hackathon people in the fertilizer group will we pay extra if we know where the food comes from and that visibility behind it? And that is something that we would like to be involved with. And this can only be done, as you said, through collaboration, when we all work together. All of us are needed to look into what is necessary, how can we share the information on what happens on farm, because that is ultimately where our food comes from. It can come from laboratories and everywhere else, but the majority of food will be from the farm. And yes, just passion for me is smallholders as well. So we look at all countries, all geographies, completely inclusive in terms of where we operate. And standardization and certification is one part of it, but without capacity building, it's really difficult to get the word out there. And that is where we like to collaborate with the whole stakeholder, the supply chain. So thank you for the opportunity.
No, thank you, Elmé. And maybe, Ben, let me bring to you here, because you represent many different type of seeds companies, right? And I'm sure it's not easy to have all these seeds companies working together, collaborating together. How you define collaboration in this, in this environment with the challenges that you have, that seeds companies have, etc. How do you see it?
Thank you very much, Ronald. And maybe I'll share later my history also with the IFAMA community, because I think also thanks to you, I joined the IFAMA in 2023 in New Zealand, and potentially in 10 years I will also reflect back on my first, so that was a good image also to look at that. But indeed, a few words on ISF. ISF is the International Seed Federation, so we are global, and we are a federation representing all seed companies, so we are the voice of the global seed industry from all the different crop and species, so from sugar beet to grasses, vegetables, field cross, to even trees and shrubs, because it also starts with seeds. We represent more or less 10,000 members, 70 countries, National Seed Association, and overall 95% of the global seed trade. And our two main activities are towards triggering innovation from our members, so seed companies, plant breeders, but also facilitate trade at the global level. So also pushing hard and really encouraging harmonization, certification system, and all these kind of things, because that's the way also to deliver the best quality seeds to the farmers at the end, because at the end, that's our vision mission, to make sure that access to innovation and access to technology with this very small piece of plant material reach out the farmers and all type of farmers, not only smallholder farmers, but also large farmers, family farming, and all type of farmers. And I think it's important to highlight that we need this diversity of breeders in the private sector, but also in collaboration with the public sector, because there are a lot of plant breeding programs in the public sector via consortium and other organizations like CGIAR, ERI, and so on, that are also delivering a lot of very good materials to the farmers. And we need this diversity of plant breeders to be able to deliver the expectation of the farmers at the farm gate. So talking about collaboration within an industry, indeed it's not easy, because we do represent big multinational companies, but also small, medium-sized companies and very small companies with one or few people in some specific part of the world working on some specific crops. So you need also to balance also the view of those different actors within this seed community to make sure that at the end we trigger innovation and we deliver a good quality product to the farmers. And I like your idea of the bridge. And I think the beauty of collaboration is mixing collaboration and action. So it's collaboration in a way.
Exactly.
So you should connect those two words together. And I think it's a very good image, because, for instance, what we do as an international federation, like others are doing at the regional and national level, is to bring people together, bring ideas together, connect with relevant organization actors that will kind of serve, because as you say, we cannot do everything alone. So we work together within our community, but we need also to build alliance with external partners to achieve a common goal. And then once you build this trust, this agreement on where we need to go and for what, then there is a kind of, especially in the association world where we are to be pre-competitive, because we work in a pre-competitive environment, then there is a consensus that, okay, working together will bring us in a more effective way where we all want to go. So I can share some example afterwards, but I think really this beauty of collaboration and working together at the industry level really reflect the way that we want also to interact with other people and other organizations to be impactful at the end, which was your kind of concluding word.
Thank you, Ben. And you know, I participated in the your conference, the ISF conference, some weeks ago, and again, I was extremely happy to see how collaboration works actually. You see in action, like you said, right? You see all the different companies working together for a specific topic, on a specific area. And of course, it's challenging sometimes because of different business orientation of the companies, but in the end, they found, common ground. And I think this is super important. But now also, Eugenia, you are working in a very challenging environment now across countries, regions, etc., institutions, and you have to bring all this together. So just tell us a little bit about FONTAGRO and about the work that you guys are doing, and also what does collaboration means for you guys.
Sure, well, thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here and sharing with all of you what FONTAGRO is. I like very much the collaboration, so maybe we have to put it on the next slide. And also, I will do the Marco Fava-Neves strategy of Netflix, but I will not use 14 chapters, just one. But this is important because to explain what FONTAGRO is collaboration, is cooperation. It was created for that purpose. And going to the Netflix strategy. So I would like that we all think what was happening in the 1990s, and especially in 1998. It was very difficult at that time to get funding for science. Most of the funding that the multilateral development banks were assigning were going to Africa and Asia, and very little to Latin America. So 15 visionaries that at that point were people from the Inter-American Development Bank, people from ICA, the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation in Agriculture, who leads the cooperation in the Western Hemisphere as well. They got together with the Minister of Finance and they created FONTAGRO with this purpose. Let's get capital. Let's make every country to pay one time ever membership. That's it. We collect the capital. We invest the capital through the IDB, the Inter-American Development Bank, and with the return on those investments, we are able to have every year some capital to do cooperation and collaboration. Because we understand that in the region, and this happened in Africa, it's happened in Asia, I was in contact with them as well, they have similar challenges. They share biomass, they share production systems, they need similar solutions. So if we have the same challenges, why we don't collaborate, countries, the national research institutes, the universities, the private sector, the farmers, in order to speed innovation? And why that? Because in Latin America, as you may know, we have countries that they are very strong in knowledge in some areas, and others need those knowledge. So what about to create these consortia of countries and scientists that can work together, can develop new technology together simultaneously, and make more solutions for farmers? And this is what FONTAGRO started to do in 1998. So after 3 decades, we have $100 million. The original capital was $83 million. We mobilized $160 million. We supported around 215 international operations. My portfolio right now is 70. We work with not just the 15 countries that they own the fund, we work over 35 countries. Because even though the other countries are not members, we don't avoidant to be part of the network because we are looking for collaboration. So when I started in 2018 as the director or executive secretary of FONTAGRO, one of the first things I did, because I come from the private sector, is try to be sure that all the stakeholders are represented in that stakeholder, in every consortia, sorry. Because if scientists work in silos and they don't work with the farmers, or if there is no private sector present in the consortia, we are missing impact. And at the same time, I realized that there were a lot of international groups, cooperation mechanism, organizations, and especially the multilateral development banks. I was working at the IDB long before FONTAGRO. So I tried to create a space where every stakeholder can be part of the dialogue fair, because in order for us to have an impactful collaboration or an effective collaboration, we need to understand the interest of every stakeholder. And we need to create trust. And for that, we need to create the space for dialogue. And this is what we do every time that we are designing a project in FONTAGRO. So it's really amazing for me to work for this organization. I think we have gained a lot. We are able to mobilize even $5 for every dollar that we invest in some initiatives. And we are able to work in projects that go from, cocoa, pastures, livestock, everything that you can imagine. So last year, and also understanding the change on the international environment, because this is something that I think all organizations need to do, is adapt, is be aware that you need to adapt. So we started to work more closely with US universities. So I have a lot of friends. I'm a Fulbright fellow from Cornell, so I reach out them and say, hey, what are you doing in international cooperation in Latin America? Well, we don't work together. And then other universities started to appear. University of Florida, Ohio State University, and I have other examples. So we now are real Western Hemisphere connected platform where scientists from the US and all Latin America are connected and trying to work together and bring solutions to the table. So I will stop there, and I would like to then maybe talk about some examples.
No, thank you. Excellent. And this is a very, very interesting. I would say it's a big challenge, because you are talking about with different organizations, different institutions, and I know there's a lot of politics involved.
Perspectives.
And perspective.
Lobby.
In the end, to find common ground is important. But anyhow, let's move to Elmé. Elmé, and I'm sure Agraya, with your experience of many years, you have identified one collaboration that you said, I love it. We made it, and it was great that it worked. Can you just tell us a little more about this collaboration that you can give us a good example of a successful collaboration?
We have gone through many attempts of collaboration, private-public partnerships and others, and some work better than others. One that I love would be work in Africa, just because I'm based in South Africa and come from Africa. And it has to do with smallholders, and then also, and Hillary will love that, with women in farming. So it is something close to my heart that we would establish that as a working environment where it's not seen as a case that just happens once off, but can be replicable, because that is extremely important for us. We operate in more than 130 countries, 200,000 farmers already in the system, and so whatever we do we need to be able to do it in all countries. So yes, we always do trials and pilots and have a collaboration effort in one country or one continent, but mostly in a country, because it's so various, so different with all the players. But ultimately, the results that we need to see need to be able to replicate that. And what most of the time is very difficult for me is when we do a project, it works, but the funding stops, and then the good work that you thought you've done sort of disappears. And this is the thing which I would like to have as change as a community is to have lasting effect. And that was also the smallholder case that we did last year with the young board, the online event that we've done, is how do we do collaboration and bring in projects, but that have lasting effect. And it's not only while the project lasts, while the money lasts, but that they really integrate the things that they learn and the efforts that are being brought forward to them. So those are the ones that work and that I like.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. I love this last example. Ben, a successful collaboration that that you can tell us, and and hopefully the one that you give you a lot of passion. Yeah. Tell us this is a great collaboration. I was involved, or ISE was involved.
I mean, on behalf of the industry, we've done a lot of work on technical or advocacy piece or guidelines. But I think the one that is the most recent, but I'm very proud of, is the collaboration, the coalition we've built on topics around the social right. Because this is something, and especially with, we are an industry where we do work with a lot of people, internally with our staff and our employees, but also reaching out millions of farmers, either producing seeds or using the seeds. And we feel that all this discussion about social right and ethical practices was gaining importance. I've been to a meeting, a panel yesterday, where they were mentioning the ESG, and I think talking about the environmental part, that kind of is gaining less attraction right now, but more attraction on the S part, on the social part, to see how we can work together to make sure that at least the way we treat the people we work with, or all the different action that we take, is in line with responsible and ethical practices. So we brought the topics a few years ago to our members. We have a working group just addressing topics around environmental and social responsibility, a group of 20 representatives of companies, and we say, what do we need to do? First of all, to collect good initiatives. So that we created sort of a placeholder where we just were sharing kind of good, nice stories, success stories around this one. And then we thought potentially we need to go to a next step. So we started to collect the different individual code of conducts and elements that were already existing, because a lot of companies were already doing great things. And then we started to see kind of discrepancies, differences between companies, of course, between large and small, or also between region, etc. And we saw that we need to have sort of a benchmark with international recommendation, so ILO recommendation, UN principle, and all those kind of high-level recommendation when it comes to social behavior, when it comes to different topics about health and safety, working hours, freedom of association, health and diversity and inclusion, and so on. And then we started to put that together to benchmark with the recommendation with other industry, also because there are a lot of initiatives, and I've learned also here, being at IFAMA, about those other initiatives in the food retailers industry, in other kind of sectors. So then we also learn from others, and the good practices from within our seed industry, and having sort of a do's and don'ts. So if you want to see where you are as a company in terms of these topics, diversity and inclusion, those are the recommendations. This is where the seed industry is today, and this is where you need to go to the next step. So we develop guidelines, an assessment checklist, and now an online course that is free of use for our members, but also all the people working around that. And the idea is really open source to make sure that we leverage the way of doing, the way of behaving, having a clear impact on the people within companies, but also with third parties that we work with. And I think it's also in line with what Agraya is doing in terms of putting in place guidelines, recommendation, schemes that potentially help to assess where you are and put in place action plan that will really, at the end, have an impact on the ground. And that's, for me, the one that is the most interesting, because when we compare, efficiency and effectiveness, efficiency is doing, the things right, but effectiveness is really doing the right things at the right moment. And I think working together in this pre-competitive way on those horizontal topics was really a way to bring success and have an impact on the ground.
Thank you, Ben. Eugenia, successful collaboration?
Yeah, well, I want to talk a little bit about the operational model because I think this is what distinguishes FONTAGRO a lot. So we don't support financially individual organizations or country. As I said, we create these consortia. So the consortia at the beginning was something very traditional, like only National Research Institute, that they were getting together to do a project that they were interested. But when I started working at FONTAGRO, there were no connection with other stakeholders. So doing that adjustment, it was really difficult, but it was doable. So now, one of the things that is very important is that when we have a consortia with different stakeholders and people with different backgrounds and disciplines, we are speeding even more the capacities of the organization, but also we are building capacities and talent in the group of the people that is working together. And this is very important because as much as we evolve in technologies and knowledge, the gap is increasing in between people that can have that knowledge and those that they don't. So the way that FONTAGRO works help on trying to keep that gap as not bigger, we are trying to keep it small. So another thing that we learned on working in this consortia is that we were able to de-risk the investment. Because as you know, it's very difficult to get funding, except that there are just public funding to support the basic science or the first step for applied science. And we realized that we were able to move the technology development from a TRL3 to a TRL6. So now we have a lot of portfolios of technologies that are ready to be picked up for the private sector or many other stakeholders to put it on the market or put it on the gate of the farm. So that was very important. So amongst successful cases, we have cases where we work with private sector, with philanthropists, with multilateral development banks, and US universities, and if we are lucky, soon, with IFAMA. So that's something that we are working in, and maybe you can explain later a little bit too. So with private sector, we engage with Bayer. For example, they have a very great initiative called forward farming, and they were doing that in some countries. So we were able to pick up that knowledge and scale it up to other countries that they were not working. So we have a project in regenerative agriculture with Bayer. With Corteva, they have different new genetics in sorghum and other crops, and they were, through FONTAGRO, they were able to scale up the validation network in all different countries. So in that way, we are working for farmers to have maybe soon a new seed that they can use for their production system. We are working in sorghum that is resistant to heat and water deficit, and the same in horticulture species. With philanthropists, we work with the Global Research Alliance from New Zealand, which is part of the Ministry of Primary Industry. We work in a lot of activities related with adaptation and mitigation to climate change. We have 15 years of work with New Zealand. This is an amazing example. I'm not gonna go even through the details, but it's important how organizations from New Zealand, farmers, and also Latin America are engaging. Global Methane Hub, which is another philanthropist that work in mitigation. We have a great initiatives in rice. So they provided some funding for a group of scientists to use new technology that is provided by the US to measure by satellites the methane emissions on rice and paddy rice production. So we are doing that in Peru, in Panama, in Uruguay, and Colombia. Multilateral banks, this is a very question mark, and is actually I think what's motivating me to work more. It's impossible to work in cooperation if we don't are able to assure that that project is gonna be used by someone else to implement it locally at some point, something that you were mentioning. So, you know, everybody likes to work in their own world, but I think that people like us, we need to push for make people aware that we need to work more connected and cooperating more. Multilateral banks, they have another philosophy. They have a strategy that is approved by the Minister of Finance. So every time you need to work with them. They say, no, what we need to see is that project or that topic is in the document that we agree with the Minister of Finance and such and such. So there is a challenge there that I think we need to work, and as much as us work together, I think it's going to be important. We have a project with, for example, the IDB. I don't know if you know, like in 2019, there was a first spot of Fusarium, tropical race 4, in 4 bananas plantations in Colombia and Ecuador. So the Minister of Agriculture, they sent me a letter and say, Eugenia, we need to collaborate and do something very quick. So I raised the topic to IDB Invest and IDB public branch. We agree in, I think, 1.5 months, we coordinated a meeting with all the stakeholders, farmers' organization for all the countries in Latin America, the National Research Institute, the offices that care about health, crop health. So we gathered in Bogota for 2.5 days, and we created one cooperation that brought all the scientists together to see how they can contain and avoid the dispersion of the disease. And at the same time, the IDB and IDB Invest did other part to assure that the companies were not affected. Because if they sell loans, for example, to an exporter of banana and that company is hit by this problem, they are going to be able to pay the loan. So this is the kind of network and interest that we need to understand that every stakeholder has. And this is why cooperation and collaboration is important, but I will highlight again that it's important to understand the interest that every organization has in order to really make a very impactful collaboration. And that's the last one that I want to mention is US universities. Nobody was working connected with US university. Suddenly, we have the New World screwworm that maybe you are aware between Mexico and US, and New World screwworm in livestock is very common in Latin America. I was working in farm driving cattle in my first life, and I was always taking care about this in the cattle. So now we created a network where scientists from the US are working together with FONTAGRO and also the countries that we represent in an initiative on New World screwworm, but our initiative helped US universities to apply for funding, because we are the counterpart to the US funding. Excellent. And we did the same with Ohio State Universities in soils, in carbon sequestration with Ratan Lal. That was in 2021, and also in New Zealand. Yeah. So there are a lot of examples.
So you have many collaborations. Yeah. Well, this is great, Eugenia, and this is exactly the purpose of this panel, to hear all these positive recommendations, etc. But now, with all your experience, and I hear Eugenia, Elmé, and Ben, you have a lot of experience in collaboration. What is, if you were hired by IFAMA as advisor, what should IFAMA do different in terms of collaboration to really make collaboration more impactful? And I give you only 1 minute because we don't have a lot of time now.
Should I start? So
yeah,
I'll
go ahead.
First, I think 2 things. This morning, one speaker was mentioning level of change. Number 1 is policy. Number 2 is standards. Number 3 is consumers. Knowing that in the agri-food sector, that could be consumers on one side, but also consumer on the other side upstream, the farmers. So I think first pay attention at the policy environment and regulators. I was happy to see also some speakers talking more about this regulatory framework and environment and how IFAMA can also advise on the best way, and that's a good step. But don't forget the farmers. And I think that quite often we talk on behalf of farmers, but I've not seen a lot of farmers during those 3 days. So I think potentially we talk a little bit about smallholder farmers. We do represent indeed an important part of farmers, but we also need to embrace and engage with other farmers. So I will say for me the 2 priorities will be to make sure that throughout the value chain we capture this element about policies and farmers on the other side.
Thank you, Ben. Elmé?
couldn't agree more with Ben than involve the farmers. We're talking about them, so yes, have them as inclusion in the discussions. It's all the stakeholders in the supply chain should be participating in the discussions. We should have a shared goal. I think we do have that, but that should be very clear, because I think that's where some of the collaborations failed, is if there's mixed interpretations of what the outcome should be. It would be great if we can do things before there is regulatory demands for things. And IFAMA should be more than just a conference, but we should have a year-round collaboration. It should be something that we do throughout the year. And I think the youth and the young board is also a very important element of that, where they can bring in their new ideas and innovation.
Absolutely. Eugenia,
What
1 minute.
I like the financial side, where the money is. So I would like to maybe work more with the financial institutions worldwide, and make them aware that they have a space to work with all the stakeholders. I will go for that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put you on the spot, right? But I'm going to test an idea with all of you. Don't be scared. So, because I see a lot of synergies here, and I see an opportunity that because we're talking a lot about collaboration, we can create together an example of collaboration for IFAMA. So, taking the example of Latin America, taking seeds, taking certification, what about if we together, and please give me your feedback, can work on the improving access of improved seeds in smallholders or medium farmers in Latin America? We can use this as a pilot, and after that, we can expand this to different regions, and where IFAMA is part of it. What do you think about this idea? How do you see it? Can you just...
I think it's a great idea. Seeds is the biggest challenge in all Latin America. Everybody talk about productivity, and if we want to have more productivity, whatever sector you work, you need a good genetics. If not, neither that you are going to do is going to help. So seed production is actually one of the biggest challenge in the region, and especially for small farmers, because small farmers, what they do normally, they kept seed, but maybe they don't have enough quality, and they use that quality, and that seed for the next and next and next, and that is not right. So working on trying to develop maybe this section, who can pick up the new genetic that the National Research Institute are working on, or maybe the private sector, and put it available for farmers that can produce seeds for other farmers, I think is a very important topic and
Excellent.
An opportunity.
Ben, what do you see from the ISF?
I'm a bit biased because seeds is in my blood somewhere, but I'm happy to see that when we talk about innovation, I think seeds should be the number one. AI and all the different tools that farmers can have afterwards is an additional input. But it starts with good agricultural input, and seed is one of them. So very happy to explore further. We had a project with our members in Rwanda 2 years ago, where it was just to create a plot where farmers can also see and compare, let's say, their current varieties with improved genetics. And I think that could be just a good idea to organize this one. The seed production part is indeed an important part, because we need to think about which country exactly. I guess Peru might be in your mind, because next year, but that could be interesting to have something concrete to work on.
Elmé, how do you see Agraya involvement?
So we have the money. We have the seed, so we'll get the farmers, and we'll help with capacity building, and we'll bring that element in, because absolutely true that it starts at the farm with the seed, and yes, there's new genetics, but also if they reuse the seed over and over, the yields go down. It doesn't make sense. It's not a good practice. So yes, we're in.
Excellent, and this is this is a good example, and this is hopefully we can involve more people. Tony, I see you. saying yes, right?
He's running.
So, so I think this is important. So maybe let me wrap up for the last question of the day. Imagine you have a young professional here. I have one here. I can see that she's great, Michelle. So, or any other young professional. What are your recommendations that you will give to the young professional in terms of collaboration, partnerships, etc.? How they can really improve these specific soft skills that are essential, and AI can give it to us?
What I like and I love to work with students and young people that they are interested in agriculture, because we know that there is, the change of the change generation is difficult. What I tell them all the time is that when you study agronomy or biology or any technical career, you also need to keep learning. And I like not only to advise them to learn other type of disciplines, especially with management or collaboration. Actually, there is not any class or course in international cooperation, which is something that I want to do for maybe next step, and try to teach a student about that. But also I like to bring them to work with me, because there is I think, in my opinion, the best way they get engaged is working, is hand-on, and they can see on first sight what that means to do cooperation and work in collaboration, because it's up and down. It's not something that is perfect. So the best way that we can help the new generation is give them the chance to work on that, and we can learn from them, and then can learn from us, and in that way create a new generation for international cooperation and also scientists.
Thank you, Elmé.
Yeah, I would agree, and then get experience, and not only in what you've studied, but also in the different areas of agriculture as a whole, financial side, marketing side, business planning, and then if they were from the science side, that all together, because it takes all of us to do it. It's not just one area of agriculture. So experience.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yesterday, I had the chance to participate in the speed networking event organized by the Young Board. And it's a great initiative, and it's a good way to connect young professional and future generation leaders and managers with professional. And my recommendation yesterday were about be curious first, but also be global, because even if it's local action, it's within a global environment. My recommendation was also to pause learning, because quite often they always want to go after a bachelor for another master, and after a master, another master, and a PhD. So at one point, it's good also to pause, to act and go into the working environment and potentially go back to studies. Now we have the flexibility to go back to so be also always curious. And my last advice was be kind. But I think that's a given, and if we all play our part in this one, they will also spread these kind of good words and good intentions throughout. So that will be great.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Eugenia. Thank you, Elmé. I think it was great, a great discussion. Tony's waiting to give a very, show a very nice video. But just to finalize this discussion that we'll discuss about potential pilot is to follow, and I invite other people, because we're going to make this very transparent, to participate, to support this. And from my perspective, this is an essential contribution that IFAMA can give in the next years. Tangible collaborations, tangible ideas that they can really bring impact to the farmers. Exactly what we're saying. We're talking a lot about the farmers, to really impact to the farmers, and especially because I'm passionate about this topic, smallholders and medium-sized farmers, because we need to support them. They need this support here, and IFAMA can play an important role. So thank you, everyone, and thank you to the panelists.